Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna look at Mandalorian. It's a show on Disney Plus. You probably already watched it, but for those who haven't, you at least heard of Baby Yoda, right? That cute little thing with the mug? Pathetic. But nobody actually talk about the Mando. He carried the show by himself and nobody gives a crap. You know why? Cause it's not cute. But what if we make him cute, huh? This is not going to be a long ass beginner tutorial, but I'm going to explain every important step I take. If you have a basic knowledge of the software, you'll be just fine. So make sure you like the video, subscribe and all that crap, so you don't miss out on the next part. Why are we waiting? Let's get into it. So first I'm going to start with a simple sketch. It's not necessary, but it's going to help us a lot as we proceed to the actual tutorial. If you're not interested in drawing and such, just skip it and get to the Blender part. I'm using an old Intuos tablet for the drawing, nothing fancy. Also, I have to mention I'm using an amazing reference app called Quadro. I don't know if you guys heard of it or not. It's like PureRef but free. Well, obviously you can't see it because it's out of the recording frame, but it works like PureRef. I recommend you give it a try since it's free. I'll put the link down in the description so you don't have to look for it. So I'm using some of these random Mandalorian references to inspire my work. Remember, always use references for whatever you're doing, it's really helpful. Just gonna keep it simple, get the most important parts, and not going into the details yet. Whenever I'm done with the fast sketch, I'm creating a new layer and lower the opacity of the previous layer so I can draw over it. As you can see, we're getting the sharp looking sketch that we can work with later. This is really gonna come in handy, especially when I want to model the armor. I can simply use it as a background, so I can model it pretty fast. Now that it's finished, I'm getting into the Blender to delete our default cube, so I can add our sketch to the scene using a mesh reference. Remember, you do it in front view so it doesn't get messed up with the axes. Then I'm adding a cube to shape the main body, add some edges for the legs and extrude it out. I don't care about the symmetry problem for now, because we're gonna fix it later using mirror modifier. Then adding some edges for the neck and extruded the faces. Now I'm adding the mirror modifiers so I can see what's going on the other side. Then extruded the face on the right for the arms. Also, I checked the back part to see if it didn't get messy in the back. Then I close the hands by pressing F. I'm not too worried about the hands for now, because we're gonna model it separately later, so it would be easier to work with. Now I'm adding some subdivision. Yeah, I could add the subdivision surface modifier, but since we're sculpting this model later, I'm adding multi-res modifier. It's gonna give us similar result as subdiv in ZBrush. Now in sculpt mode, I'm shaping the body with grab brush and then inflate some of these parts like chest and knees with the obviously inflate tool. Now I'm adding a subdivision level to my model and using clay strip tool to fix this boxy looking model to make it more like an actual character. Now I'm adding a subdivision level to my model. By working on the feet and legs and also the ass, it might be a little frustrating at the beginning, but it will come together as we work on it a little bit more. Also make sure you save your file every chance you get. I'm not sure how many times I actually messed up a work while I forget to save it and power went out or something like that, and most of the time not even autosave could save my ass. Well, I'm no anatomy expert, so I'm using some body references and translate it to this stylish character as best as I can. I mostly use clay tool because it's definitely the most useful tool in like any sculpting software. You can easily get the shape that you want with this tool pretty fast, and then smooth it out by holding shift. I speeded up the video so you don't get bored so fast. I'm just doing some simple stuff like forming the curve of the body using grab tool. Grab tool is also really important while you work on the model like this. It makes the job really easier while you want to move a big part of the object smoothly and get it to the shape that you want. Arms are a little bit weird now, we have to work on it a bit more. And also neck should be tilted back a bit for the correct posture. Also, you might wonder why the hell this guy is decapitated. Well, obviously we're going to model the helmet. I'm bringing back out the sketch to model the basic shape of the helmet. First, to get the idea of what our character looks like with something on his head. There's no actual use for a head right now, since we're not going to see his face anyways, so I'm not gonna waste any time on sculpting the head. You gotta work on the muscles more to make it more believable and real. It just needs time. Now that the arm shape is a little bit better, I'm gonna go to the back of the character to sculpt the muscles in the back. The back parts are more complicated because it has a lot of muscles, so I highly recommend adding some good detailed back references so you don't miss out on details. It's also really important to give the character that realistic look. I'm just adding clay to the model, not going into the details yet, just getting the basic shape of the back muscles. Then for the details I'm using the crease tool. It's pretty good for a small creases that you want to add between the muscles. And trust me, you wouldn't get this result with other brushes. It really makes the details pop out. Now that I'm kinda done with the back part, just wanna go and try to get the arm bone to the desired shape. As you can see, it's kinda flat and I wanna make it a bit bulkier, as you might say. This time we make the actual hand. I'm starting with the cube, scale it down and squeeze it to make it to the size of the palm of the hand. Rotate it to get it into the position. Also, I made a mistake here. When you want to move it, make sure you're doing it in edit mode so you don't mess up the pivot like me. I realized I made the arms a bit long, so I make it a bit shorter using the move brush. I added 4 edges to the model because obviously we have 4 fingers, right? Ctrl B to bevel, select the front faces, extrude it to make the fingers extrude again for each part. I rotate the hand again to get it into the right position. As you know, not all fingers are the same, right? So I select each of them and shape them individually. I added an edge on the other side, bevel it again to make a face, select and extrude it again for the finger. I move it around to get into the right position. Hands are not flat, so I enable proportional editing, shortcut O, and select the left part of the hand, make a circle smaller, and curve the side of the hand. This to make sure we make the curve smoothly and doesn't make a sharp edge. Also, I select the middle and move it a bit further. Also, I wanna scale it up a bit. Using proportional editing again, I want to smooth out the part where hand and arm connects. Now that we got the basic shape of the hand, I'm going to add multi-raise modifier and subdivide it to see what it looks like with higher poly counts. Move it around, jiggle it a bit to get what you're comfortable with. Also, the palm is too thin, so I use inflate brush again and smooth it out to get the shape of the palm right. And now shaping each of the fingers individually using mostly inflate, move and smooth brush. Now I want to mask the thumb finger, invert it so I can move it to the back a little Using a reference also really helps here to get the shape and the curves right. And since I have nothing to add here, you might just watch the progress quietly now. Okay, now we're getting into the semi-detailed territory. As you know, arms are not this flat, so I'm bringing the details of the muscles using clay strip brush all the way to the bottom. Not getting into the small details, just adding the basic muscles of the arm using clay, smooth and crease brush. Also doing the same to the back part. For the chest part, I'm gonna make it more stand out and more stiff by sculpting some ups and downs on the bottom of the neck. Also gotta add the ribcage details as well as the muscles, the strains on the neck. Then using draw sharp brush, adding some sharp edges on the chest. And no, I'm not gonna add some crazy six packs, but we gotta get the basics. Also the bottom of the ribcage should be visible through the body. Now that we're kinda done with the basic shape of the upper body, I'm getting into the bottom side and add some muscles to the leg. Also I have to mention again, I got some anatomy references by my side and the whole thing's kinda based on that. So don't forget to add some detailed muscles references to your reference app. This might not be so accurate to the actual human body, because we're shrinking down everything, but you get the idea of what's going on the character's body. Also the muscle strain in the back of the foot is important too. It's gonna ruin the whole feeling of the character standing pose if you don't do it right. I'm not gonna add any major detail to the foot for now, because it's not gonna be that useful for the making of the shoe, and we're not gonna see it anyway. And now back to the hands again to fix our shape problems using move brush and also adding some details to the hands like fingernails and all that good stuff using crease brush. The video is on fast forward. You really gotta take your time on this to make it more decent. I'm changing the position of the hand to fit it right on the spot where arms and hands connect, because we're gonna be ready for the fun part of the tutorial. Topology. Boring, right? Anyways, now I'm increasing the subdivision to get the most detailed model for topology. Then what you're gonna do is to apply the modifier to the object, because we're gonna merge the hands and body together and then move on. I'm doing the exact same thing now for the hands, but since we have mirror modifier here, I'm gonna apply that too, just like subdivision. After we done that, now we have two separate high poly models that we can work with later. I'm selecting both of them, holding shift, and when they're both selected, pressing Ctrl J to merge them together. But before we go any further, I had to do a little quick preview of our Mandalorian to see how he can dance, baby.
Look at my boy shaking that ass. Oh, hell yeah. Okay, that's enough of that, I guess.
Start another topology. I'm making a simple plane, moving it forward, get it into the position where it doesn't touch the model, but it's not far from it. The plane should stick to our model, so we can build up faces on top of our model. Also, don't forget to name your objects so you don't get confused when projects get heavier. So what we're gonna do is to enable snap option, shortcut shift tab. Also, I enabled backface culling and project individual elements. As you can see, we can now move our vertex around the object. Also make sure you put it on face element, and for it to really snap to our actual model, I'm adding a shrink wrap, and for it to have a little bit of space from the body, we can increase the offset if necessary. Now I'm adding mirror modifier again, enabling clipping and decrease the merge number for it to snap to the other half. Now you can select an edge and simply go around the object by pressing Ctrl right click, or you could just extrude it as usual. And it's really important that you start with big faces and then add edges to it if needed for little details that you want to track. As you can see, we got this problem that the model is see-through, and continuing the work is kinda hard now. You can go into the viewport display settings and turn off the in front, but that's no help either. Other ways to add displace modifier. This gives our surface a bit of space from the body so we can see what it actually looks like. It's kinda messy too, selecting vertexes are hard. It's getting even more confusing with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you a free add-on that solves this problem once and for all. Draw X-ray. It changes the color of our surface model so we can see it from every angle with no problem. It comes with two options. The one with the snapping option is not free, so go ahead and put down like $2,000 because you guys are rich. Nah, I'm kidding. You can put whatever you want to help the guy out. It's a really useful tool, but if you want to stick to the free version, just put down 0. So once we add it to our blender, you can go ahead and activate it from overlay option. It's right on top. Then we can safely model the rest of the surface with no problem. Our face is now visible from every angle, and it's really easy to get around it. Now there's not much to add here since it's a boring step and you have to just do it. I'm just gonna keep the time lapse for you to see how it's going so you don't miss out on anything. Now that we're done with it, I'm gonna correct the faces. We better have even sized faces because it's gonna be a lot easier to work with when we get to UA step. So I just drag every vertex to a better position until I'm happy with the results. Also look for topology problems like this and fix it. You don't want to skip this step because it's really important. It's looking good now, so I'm gonna apply the mirror modifier so it becomes a full model, and then add the multi-res modifier and add some subdivision to it. The more subdivide you do, the more detail it gets, and it also gets heavier each time, so don't go subdividing all over the place if you don't have a powerful PC. On shrink wrap modifier, put the wrap method on project, and you probably go, what the hell is that? But don't freak out, you just have to enable negative so it doesn't just project the positive. And look at that, now we have a smooth model with correct topology that we can work with later. There's always some issues when you project and stuff, and we need to go ahead and smooth out any weird bumps on the surface in the sculpt section. Because we modeled it separately, we have some issues where the hands and arms connect, and now that we have a fully merged body, we can smooth it out. Moving on to the clothing section, I'm going to use the body model as a base for the clothing. By decreasing the numbers in multi-raise modifier, we get low poly version of the body. We can now select each part that we want, duplicate, and use it for the base model for the clothing. I select the whole body by pressing A, then unselect the hands by holding Ctrl key, because we don't want any clothing on the hands. Pressing Shift D for duplicate, Escape key for resetting the position, and then P for separate. And now we got a brand new model based on our old body. It works just like Extract and ZBrush. We want it to snap to the body tight, so I'm adding shrink wrap modifier again and add the body to the target. By increasing the subdivide, it gets more detailed. Disabling the body so I can see this one better. Now it's ready to be sculpted on. We want to turn this into a nice realistic shirt and pants. So I start with clay strips brush and add some simple wrinkles close to the parts where the fabric folds. In this situation, the fabric stretches to the armpit. I want to add some wrinkles from the arm to the armpit for the overall stretch of the fabric. The shirt is not puffed, so I don't add huge bumps to it, just some simple wrinkles. Having a good reference here will definitely help, since you need to have a knowledge of how the fabric folds, stretch, and all that stuff. After we worked on our arms a bit more, I'm gonna go to the waist part and add some minor wrinkles to the fabric. The fabric here is stick tight to the body, so we don't have any huge bumps. We just need to make the fabric stretch all around the waist. I add some detail to smooth it out and then add the smaller detail after that. The parts where the fabric is more loose, we might have some bigger wrinkles, but overall don't overdo it. And for the stitching line, using the crease brush, I add a line from the top to the bottom where they sew the fabric together. Then adding a few minor wrinkles close to the line for it to actually feel like a stretch fabric. Now I separate the shirt from the pants by making a crease between it, and I'm gonna do exactly the same things with the pants. As you can see, there's a problem with the left leg. This is what happens when you don't check the overall shape of the object more often and something gets deleted while you're editing vertices. This is fixable in edit mode and connecting them together. Since we didn't do any UVs, we're fine. But it gets weird after we switch back to the sculpt mode and it needs to be smoothed out. Since I needed to fix this part, I disabled the symmetry. Now I need to sculpt the other leg individually. For the cape, I make a new plane, cut some edges, and then remove the middle face for the neck and lower the back part. I make sure vertices are in the right position and add some more edges to the plane for more detail. If one part has more edges than the others, it will make this sculpting harder, because when we subdivide it, some parts get really heavy due to the high poly count, and the others, where it has less edges and faces, have less poly counts, and it will mess up the small details. So I want to have even distributed edges throughout the whole plane, so we don't have any issues when we get to the sculpting and UVs. The basic shape of the cape is ready, so by going into the sculpt mode, using clay strip brush, I'm adding a big chunks of clay and smooth it out. We have to take care of the basic shape of the fabric first, so I'm using some references like the Batman cape to get the idea of how the fabric folds when it's hanging around the neck. And as you can see, there is this big fold behind the neck between the shoulders where the fabric folds in a circular way. We have to get that down. When the big folds are taken care of, I'm just gonna add a subdivision, add a smaller details, and then add another subdivision. You don't wanna go like 6 subdivision when you sculpt the basic shapes, because that's gonna make the smoothing really hard and it's not practical. So we have to do it step by step. Now I can start to work on the armor. For the helmet, I'm starting with the plane. In wireframe mode, I simply move the vertices to the curved position. Now you know how useful that drawing in the beginning of the tutorial is. You can see every curve and angle pretty clear, and by moving the vertices around the drawing, the shape will get close to the reference really quick. Now we just need to select and extrude. I'm selecting the right part of the helmet and dragging it to the back and extruding it so we could reach the other side. It might look boxy for now, but the time we subdivide the whole thing, it gets much more smoother. Doing the same thing with the top side, dragging it and extruding. Now I'm adding more edges to the parts where it needs more details. You don't want to overdo it, because if you add an edge to a round part of the object, it's not gonna look good after subdivision. Also, I use knife tool for some parts, because it's easier to work with. You just need to press K on your keyboard and make some edges wherever you need. But you have to be careful with it, because it might ruin your topology if you don't use it right. For the top part, I'm extruding the front part to the back and merge the vertices to the right part. After we've done that, we need to separate the edges from each other a bit more, because if they stay close to each other, it makes a sharp edge after we subdivide it. We don't want that. We want a good, round and smooth helmet. Just checking up on the sizes and compare it to the reference to get it closer to the actual thing. When the basic shape is done, I'm adding some edges to the faces. On the parts where I need more sharpness, like the ears or the front part of the helmet, the more edges are closer to each other, the sharper it gets. Now as you can see, the helmet got a black tint glass inside it, so I'm gonna start making it by creating a new plane, make it smaller, get it inside the helmet, add mirror modifier, and just extrude till the helmet holes are filled. It doesn't have any details, so I keep it simple. Now by enabling proportional editing, or shortcut O, I'm selecting few vertices and moving them around to make the helmet more rounded. So in this part we've done the body sculpting, the cape and the helmet. In the next episode we're making the whole armor and the clothing. And since you guys already subscribed, you probably won't miss it, right? Because that would be really bad, isn't it? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Peace.